The Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, offered statements on cases of attacks on the stability of the country, which has been prosecuted. In Palestine, the Red Crescent confirms that Zionist troops attacked the Nasser Medical Facility, the most important in Khan Yunis. In Uganda, leaders and head of governments demand the transformation of the financial system and condemned the genocide against the Palestinian people in the last days of the G77 China summit. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, Attorney General Tarek William Saab offered details and testimonies on the latest conspiracies against the state, unveiled and prosecuted by the security forces and the Public Prosecutor's Office. In his speech, broadcast on national and international channels, the Attorney General revealed 5 moments and criminal terrorist actions that tried to bathe Venezuela in blood. He said that the captured soldiers are mercenaries from Colombia. The official indicated that the details of who pays for the ammunition, weapons, air or land transfers and have clear tracks of financing are known. William Saab added that the detainees are convicted, confessed and have revealed information about the plans against the majority of the Venezuelan people and the democratic society.
This foreign operation operates and carries out clandestine meetings in the city of Bogotá, Republic of Colombia, for the recruitment of members of the Venezuelan state security agencies. For this plot that we have called espionage of Jagualito, 3 subjects deprived of their freedom who have already been accused by the Public Prosecutor's Office have been sentenced.
In this context, Tarek William referred to the attempts of the terrorists to leak extremely important information of the Bolivarian nation.
The subject by Paro Guerrero Lopez, who with the help of 10 other people made contact with military personnel to extract sensitive information, classified information of military units, mobilization of aircraft and weapons, was apprehended. We lead this data. They are truly reproachable traitors, enemies of the nation and the people of Venezuela. I want to emphasize with figures already that in this case there are 11 subjects apart from those charged and accused.
A delegation of senior United States government officials, including the head of the Southern Command, Laura Richardson, will visit Ecuador to accelerate bilateral cooperation in security matters. In a press release from the U.S. Embassy in Quito, it is informed that the Washington authorities will be in the South American country until next Thursday. The U.S. delegation is led by the Special Presidential Advisor for the Americas, Christopher Dodd, who is returning to Ecuador, as well as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Bureau of Counter-Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, Christopher Landberg, and the other unspecified civilian and military officials. The group plans to meet with the President Daniel Noboa and with his Ministers of Defense, Government, Foreign Affairs and Economy. In addition, meetings are expected with senior law enforcement and justice sectors officials and representatives of the civil society. In Bolivia, President Luis Arce commemorates the 15th anniversary of the creation of the plurinational state of Bolivia with a message to the nation. From the Casa Grande del Pueblo, the seat of the government, the president highlighted the union among Bolivians and urged them to maintain cooperation in a harmonious and sustainable manner for the continued development of the plurinational state. During his speech, the head of the state pointed out that the premise of the plurinational state has always been to build an inclusive, equitable society which retakes ancestral knowledge and pays permanent homage to the people's struggle to recover natural resources. Luis Arce also emphasized that the new economic model sets the country on the path of industrialization.
There are also reasons to be concerned and therefore to be alert on a combat footing The threats of a conservative and colonial restoration project have not disappeared, and now they have in their favor the articulation with a new right wing that for personal and electoral ambitions is trying to weaken the foundation of our plurinational state of Bolivia.
The Bolivian president stressed that despite global conditions and crises, low inflation rates in Latin America.
External conditions in the world that are putting several countries in our region in trouble. The Bolivian economy maintains a sustained growth rate that reached 2.3% in the third quarter of last year. Likewise, we have made an effort to preserve price stability, so we concluded 2023 as the second lowest inflation in the region.
The president of Bolivia also announced that from the right wing they seek to destabilize the government and shorten the mandate if possible.
We are not going to deny that there are problems at other levels of the plurinational state, such as justice, but I want to be clear, in the plurinational legislative assembly, from where the traditional right and the new right have torpedoed the necessary consensus to call for judicial elections, and now they are trying to put the responsibility on the executive body. Nothing indicates that these political currents are interested in proving justice. In reality, they seek to use this argument of justice. They seek to use this argument of justice to destabilize the government and, if possible, even shorten our mandate.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Cuba, the international conference Operation Truth is held on the 65th anniversary of one of the most revolutionary communication feats of Commander Fidel Castro. President Miguel Díaz-Canel intervened in the meeting that brings together more than 60 delegates from 30 countries. They commemorate the response of an incipient revolution to the propaganda apparatus of the United States through agencies such as AP, UPI, or Newsweek. The president of Prensa Latina, Luis Enrique González, recalled that 60 years ago, Commander Castro, with the support of a group of Cuban journalists, gathered more than 300 foreign correspondents to tell them the truth about what was happening on the island after the triumph of the revolution. In the meeting was ratified the importance of maintaining alternative projects to the single pro-imperialist thought.
Wherever there is today an alternative communication project to lies, manipulation, hegemony, and the subtle bias that induces so much prejudice towards our identities, our autochthonous cultures, our brave peoples who resist with epic courage. Wherever there are today alternative projects to the pro-imperialist unified system, there is an Operation Truth in progress.
The Israeli occupation forces repeated another night of terror in Khan Yunis after shelling several residential areas. They also attacked the Nasser hospital. In this regard, the Red Crescent confirmed that after reporting a heavy siege by Zionist groups around the Nasser Medical Complex, the most important medical facility in Khan Yunis, they have lost all communication with their staff. Several explosions were heard after the military deployment, and before being cut off, the doctors confirmed the arrival of numerous wounded from the Al Amal neighborhood, almost all of them children and women. It should be noted that attacks on the health centers, according to international humanitarian law, is a war crime. The Israeli occupation army in the Gaza Strip committed at least 20 massacres in the last 24 hours. At least 190 Palestinians lost their lives in these actions. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the attack also left nearly 340 wounded. Following these incursions, the Israeli army communicated its decision to reduce the size of its forces in Gaza and transfer some of them to the West Bank. The massacres come at a time when the Israeli media reported that Tel Aviv army has moved to the third phase of the war in Gaza. That includes bombing specific targets in the Gaza Strip. According to the authorities, more than 25,000 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of the Zionist military incursions on October 7, 2023. The Palestinian government labeled as a thief and an exercise in piracy the occupiers' proposal to manage the taxes that belong to the Palestinians, since they pay them, despite the fact that Israel has kept them frozen since November 2023. For the Secretary of the Executive Committee of the Organization for the Liberation of Palestine, Hussein al-Sheikh, the conditions imposed by the occupier are unacceptable. Israel approved the transfer to Norway of the funds it collects from the Palestinians in the name of the government of Palestine, without its authorization, which it can only transfer when Israel authorizes it. Al-Sheikh calls on the international community to stop Zionist piracy. As reported, Israel plans to send Palestine's tax money to Norway, an action that was described as a piracy by the Palestinian authorities. For more details, our correspondent in Gaza, Nur Harazem.
Tax money being transferred to Norway. Here is the full story. Actually, back on November, the Palestinian Authority refused to take a partial transfer from Israel to its tax money. Even though this tax money will go to pay the staff and the employees of the PA, and technically these people belong to Fatah Party, not Hamas. They are not working with Hamas. They are not even supporting Hamas. However, Israel from its side, they refused. They are still holding the tax money. And they said that they fear this money will go to support Hamas in Gaza. Here is what lately happened. The Israeli side had a very long cabinet meeting on Friday, where finally on Sunday they came up with the decision of sending the money to Norway, and for Norway to hold the tax money, the PA tax money for the Palestinians in Gaza. Actually, Palestinians here on the ground, they are starving. They are looking forward to accept their salaries, the money, because we are talking about 3 months without any income, 3 months without any salary, and they are forced to buy things at double, triple, and sometimes at 10th the time. And we're talking about everything: water, food, even renting a home, renting a tent. Everything is very expensive. So this move is very significant for them. Maybe it will facilitate sending the money for the PA employees here in Gaza. Talking about the latest on the ground, the Israeli forces intensified their attacks on Khan Yunis city, even though it is a green area. It is located in southern Gaza, where more than 1.5 million people actually evacuated. The city of Khan Yunis have been under heavy Israeli shelling, according to the Palestinian medical sources. And in one of the deadliest days on Gaza, 192 Palestinians were killed in the past 24 hours. Nur Harazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news, coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On the last day of the G77 plus China summit, leaders and head of governments demand the transformation of the financial system and condemn the genocide against the Palestinian people. At the closing of the discussion of the integration mechanism from the city of Kampala, delegations pointed out that in order to obtain different results in terms of development, equity, protection of life and environment, bold and different actions must be taken. The president of Uganda, who also also assumes the presidency of the group, assured that many countries are trying to comply with the 2030 agenda to face the global challenges. The new leader of the G77 denounced the unfair treatment they received from the countries that control the global financial sector. While awaiting a final declaration, the Cuban delegation emphasized that the group came out of Kampala united and strengthened.
The main priority that Cuba has had in its mandate as president of the Group of 77 and China has been precisely to preserve and promote the unity of the group. Because in Cuba's opinion, this is the basic premise for the Group of 77 to play the role it should and can play in the international arena. Remember that we are talking about the largest grouping of countries in the South. It is a mechanism that promotes cooperation and brings together almost 80% of the world population. Although it is a diverse grouping where there are countries with different characteristics, we think that it is precisely this diversity that gives strength to the Group of 77.
Rodolfo Benitez also rejected the colonial practices of rich countries and expressed the group's commitment to face today's challenges.
Of course, the powerful countries have no interest in the global South coming together. It is a bit paradoxical that while we are meeting here in Kampala, the Davos Forum meeting is taking place in Switzerland, where the richest countries of the world are discussing their strategies for world domination and hegemony. Here in Kampala, they have discussed how to play a more active role in the great challenges that we face. We have to do with the promotion of a new international economic order, with the fight against the unilateral coercive measures implemented against several member countries of our grouping.
In this context, Uganda's head of state, Yoweri Museveni, who assumed the temporary chairman of the group of G77 plus China, questioned the demands made on developing countries while ignoring the weight of sanctions. Museveni warned that the Sustainable Development Goals target imposed on developing countries are currently unattainable. Uganda's president invited to reflect on how the fight poverty, hunger and inequality under occupation, a term he used to refer to the sanctions imposed by the United States and the World Bank. The Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malik held meetings with several of his counterparts to reaffirm the urgency of a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The meetings were held on the sidelines of the third G77 summit in Uganda. The Palestinian Foreign Minister met with his Tunisian counterpart, Nabil Amas, with whom he specifically discussed the blockade on humanitarian aid imposed by Israel. He also met with Mauro Vieira, the Brazilian Foreign Minister, and with Álvaro Leiva, the head of the Colombian diplomacy. In addition to reporting on the most recent events, he detailed that desperate situation of thousands of Palestinians in the Strip. The Foreign Minister called for a world alliance to stop the Israeli genocidal operation. The Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Antonio Guterres, held a meeting on Sunday with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Venezuela, Iván Gil, where they discussed crucial issues for the development of the nations of the South. With the third summit of the G77 plus China as a framework, the diplomats talk about the injustices and crimes committed under the shadow of unilateral coercive measures. The Bolivarian Foreign Minister ratified his country's position on the imperative need to generate changes in the financial system, which he described as a predator that undermines developing nations. They addressed in the dialogue the imperative need to transform the world financial system so that it responds to the needs of the country of the global South. The minister also insisted on his government's decision to maintain and strengthen cooperation with the United Nations and its agencies. The African Office of the United Nations Children's Fund has raised the alarm about a cholera outbreak affecting at least 10 countries on the continent, with a very serious situation in Zambia and Zimbabwe. Dr. Paul Wankum, a regional advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa, said that 200,000 cases and 3,000 deaths have been documented. The most affected countries by the outbreak are Ethiopia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Somalia, and with a very acute crisis, Zambia and Zimbabwe. Alert for the precarious hygienic conditions aggravated by the climatic crisis that has produced droughts and floods. Zambia and Zimbabwe are reporting an average of 1,000 cases per week per country, and the mortality rate has risen to 4%. According to the expert, it is alarmingly high. UNICEF fears that if the outbreaks are not controlled, schools will be closed, as is already happening in Zambia. This January 20th, Piedad Córdoba, one of the most recognized and influential political and social leaders in Colombia, passed away. Córdoba was defender of human rights whose legacy was to work against racism, for peace and humanitarian agreement in Colombia.
She obtained her first elected office as councilwoman and later as a councilwoman of the city. Her outstanding work led her to run for the second time as candidate to the House of Representatives for the Department of Antioquia of the Liberal Party. In 1994, she was elected senator and re-elected in 1998. From this position, she promoted policies and programs for the inclusion of ethnic minorities, community mothers, and negotiated solutions to the armed conflict. For her recognition and struggle, she was kidnapped in 1999 by paramilitaries, a situation that led her to exile after her release. For her congressional seats, she worked tirelessly for a negotiated solution to the conflict and a humanitarian agreement. At the end of 2007, she was appointed mediator by the government to achieve the release of military and political hostages held by the former FARC. teleSUR witnessed her leadership in achieving the release of 6 hostages, including 2 high-level political officials, in joint humanitarian efforts with Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez in 2008 and 2009. The new generation of the Colombian legislature recognizing Piedad a leader, an example of fortitude, strength, leadership, and resistance in the face of difficulties, and an enormous conviction to achieve the ideals of democracy and participation of minorities in the country, black woman, fighter, and Latin American. She broke from tears as it was demonstrated after knowing her death, with many expressions of pain and condolences expressed by personalities such as former Presidents Rafael Correa, Jose Mujica, Manuel Zelaya, Cristina Fernandez, and presidents such as Nicolas Maduro and Gustavo Petro, who wrote, "Her body and mind did not resist the pressure of an anachronistic society, which applauded the adjustment of young people who hated dialogue and peace, who hated blacks, indigenous people, and the poor, who treated her as a criminal. Peace in her grave."
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.